All right, it's October 23rd, and this week we are stepping into Scorpio season. We're stepping from cardinal air. Libra season is a cardinal air sign. Libra season is a time where we're pulling back an arrow of manifestation from the curiosity of our mind. Basically, for the last month, our mind has said, I wonder what I can create with this other person. I wonder what I can co-create. I'm going to pull an arrow back for co-creation with the other, and I'm going to see what can happen. And so all through Libra season, we were collecting our team. We were deciding who we trust, who we don't trust. We were preparing ourselves for the boundaries that we will then maybe dismantle during Scorpio season, maybe test in Scorpio season, maybe strengthen in Scorpio season. And so we've had a full month of the getting to know you, almost like energetic speed dating, so to speak. And now we're going to enter into Scorpio season where we get to test all of the things. And sometimes when I talk about Scorpio season, I say that this is the season where you've chosen your scuba partner. You've tested all the scuba gear, and now you're about to go deep sea cave diving with this person. And hopefully, if something goes south when you're deep under the water in those caves, if you guys need to share oxygen masks, you trust the people that you're with to share the oxygen mask with you in a time of perhaps an emergency. And I'm not saying that Scorpio season is all about emergencies, but I am saying we want to have chosen the team that we can let our guard down with, that we can let ourselves be exposed and vulnerable with. We want to know that these people are emotionally safe, that they're upholding the standards that we've set for ourselves, that these are the people that we want to be in partnership with in the good times and the bad. It's like we've chosen almost like who we're gonna marry, right? And these, sometimes when I'm talking about Scorpio season, it rules contractual agreements. These contractual agreements might be something like a marriage, but they're also the people that we're in contractual agreements with in our work. They're the if you have a job that pays you a salary, it's the boss that's telling you these are the parameters in which I'll continue to pay your salary. If we have clients, we're telling them I'll deliver these goods based on our agreement financially. So it's the stuff that's like, all right, we put skin in the game into these relationships. We're in it now. How are we going to navigate this? And so inevitably, things come up in Scorpio season that test all of our best laid plans. And generally, the place where we have Scorpio in our chart is also the place where we navigate insecurity, because it's the one place where we actually are in a power dynamic that is related to forces beyond our control. We're basically saying, I can't rule my entire life by myself. That's Virgo energy. Virgo is saying, all right, I've got my side of the street shored up. I can pay my bills. I can cook my own dinner. I know how to wipe my butt. Like, I know these things. Now I can enter into a space of learning how to do those things next to another person. Do any of those things fall apart when we're next to another person? Do any of those things get even stronger and not allow us to integrate with another person? Do we get super hyper independent when we are faced with partnership or teamwork? So we're starting to feel the places where that hyper independence may not work. You might have that coping strategy that goes into place as soon as you start to feel a little vulnerable. It's just a really great place to use the curiosity we've cultivated in Libra season to navigate that space. And the reward of Scorpio season, the reward of going deep sea cave diving in the first place, or dropping in intimacy, or allowing your team to actually step up and take some responsibility for being on your team, right? The reward is we actually find the nugget, the magic artifact at the bottom of the cave that changes everything. It changes your life mission. It gives you the epiphanies. It's the breakthroughs. It's the fiery passion that leads the next leg of the journey. If we don't allow ourselves to drop into intimacy, we often don't find the fuel that will take us into the next leg of the journey, which is a fuel that helps us to serve humanity, who helps us to step out of our small life, step out of our individuation, and put ourselves on the line to like shift the face of our world. We go into Capricorn, we go into Sagittarius first, where we capture that passion and fire. Then we go into Capricorn, where we passionately build something that will serve the larger legacy of our life. Then we go into Aquarius, where that legacy impacts the rest of the world and ripples out. And then we finally reach Pisces, where we understand we were always doing it for ourselves anyway, because the other is us. That's essentially what Pisces tells us. The other is us. And some of us want to kind of shortcut to that space because we already know it. We're living a life knowing that. And the path to individuation is the hard one. Why would I individuate into Virgo when we're all one anyway? And the end result is that we're all one at the end of the day anyway. So there's a lot that can happen along this path. And I would say the transition from Libra to Scorpio is a bit of a tricky one, because it could cause us to want to revert back to the Virgo-like tendencies that served us so well. And if we stay in Virgo, our life will stay in service to primarily our individuation. We won't find the courage to step out into the bigger world. We won't find the courage to actually meld and lose the part of us that made us so separate, and then take that journey back toward the Piscean oneness. So this week, the 5 of Water week, the initiation is actually kind of a tricky one. And initially, when I was writing the initiations, this week actually was a love letter to a previous version of myself that I had locked away deep in my subconscious. I had a kind of angsty teenager. She was probably around 16, 17 years old, and she had all these hormones, and she was so uncomfortable in her body, and she didn't feel free because she still lived with her parents, and there was just all these teenage things. And at one point in my path, I decided that I wasn't going to be that angsty teenager anymore. I was going to grow up, and I was going to become an adult, and I was going to do the right thing and make good decisions. And I put her into a deep, dark, unconscious place. And she shook the gate of that place for a long time, until about 4 years ago, I wrote a letter to her, and I was her for Halloween that year. I dressed up as my teenage self so I could let her out and I could be in relationship with her, because those early versions of us bring gifts. They might have been scary or challenging when we were that age. We might have had to sacrifice them in order to cope with something in our lives. But those parts of us are actually also parts of us that need to come into integration during Scorpio season. And the initiation of this week, the 5 of Water, traditionally shows a figure standing, and this figure is looking down at the ground at 3 cups that have spilled all over. And it definitely looks like a grieving image. Actually, it looks like this person is deeply grieving, and there are 2 cups behind this person's back that are not aware for this person's just solely focused on the spilled cups. And when I updated the initiation, I was realizing that the water that spills, when our emotions are pierced open, when our vulnerability is pierced open, the tears that flow or the emotions that move are actually, it's never wasted. This water, the cups that have spilled, that water seeks through the soil into those shadow spaces, and it nourishes the shadow in a way that helps us to remember that it's still there. And I'm not going to read the initiation because I feel it's best read from your own your own ear, but I do want to say that every single part of us that we've ever transformed or grown out of is still a part of us. And somewhere in our deep sea diving with relationship with other, no matter what that other is, somehow on this trek, the other will probably trigger a necessity for bringing those parts of us into integration this month. So if we feel deeply wounded by relationship, if we feel deeply opened up by even sometimes receiving love can feel so vulnerable. If we feel raw and vulnerable and emotional during this time, allowing that energy to flow is what helps us to integrate these parts of us that are still there. And those parts are creative. Those parts bring gifts. And those parts are going to allow us to open up the treasure that Sagittarius will bring us at the end of these 4 weeks. And so remember that all emotion is like living water, and it's the flow. It's the flow of the universe. And no matter what our relationship is with those emotions, this is a time for more of them, even if it's uncomfortable. So I want to say also this week, we've got a really strong opposition within ourselves between faith and fear. The fear aspects are going to have something to do with whether or not we, as individuals, can manage what the fear checks seem to be writing, or the faith checks. There's some kind of faith that we've had, some kind of vision that we've had, and we might be afraid that we're not enough to bring those faithful ideas, those visions into fruition. This axis is it's not our fault if we feel this. It's not our fault if there seems to be a gap. What we're meant to be doing is navigating all of the little fearful doubts with so much compassion, because those fearful doubts were actually, they're actually little tiny prayers that are calling parts of ourselves up to the surface. So if you have a fear, for instance, that, let me pull something from my own archive. Let's say that I have a fear that I have to do it all myself, that I am the one that has to will my experience into existence. I've got to focus, put my physiology right, have the right meanings. I've got to do it all right. That's so Virgo-y, right? If I do it right, then I'm going to open the doors and manifest and lead the synchronicities that will allow my life to unfold the way that my faith has shown me it could be. Or like ridiculously, these fears might also make me feel as though my life isn't already the way that I hoped it would be, that I can't already feel the way that I want to feel. These fears can create all kinds of interesting scenarios that would criticize what's currently happening, so that I don't even see that the thing I've always wanted is already here, right? So I'm navigating that. Let's say we're all navigating that space. What that could look like is, so what parts of me have I suppressed that are not allowing myself to enjoy all the fruits of my life now? And that causes us to deep sea dive into our past, into our subconscious, into the space where all of those parts of us reside. And I can tell you, I had a part of me that was a very prolific artist. The teenager was creating art. She was always in art classes. I got my art degree. There's versions of the artist that I continuously carved away as I got more and more responsible in my roles, to the point where when I became a mother, that part was almost completely gone, because I felt there was no space for for that kind of stuff anymore. And so the part of me that I was actually longing for in my fears was actually a really creative, artistic part of me. And when we can drop into the prayer of our fear, we can actually find the resources within the roles we've put aside within ourselves. I hope that all makes sense. We kind of did a weird little internal if you're not the kind of person that finds the resources inside, then think about this as different types of people that you want to be close to or affiliated with, or different types of activities you can do in the world. Like in this case, I found an artistic version of me and I got out my art supplies. But if you're maybe an extroverted or external kind of person, this could be signing up for an art class in this example, going out and putting yourself into proximity with people who are creating art. So let the tug of war be there. It's meant to evolve us. And just know also that this week, we're healing some core karma issues with ourselves and our behaviors. So what that could look like is, oh my gosh, yeah, every time I get my art supplies out, I don't actually follow through. I buy them, but I never use them. My past behaviors would make me feel even worse about myself right now. And right now, we're meant to identify the thoughts we're having in our head about our past behaviors and say, yeah, I was in a different space back then. I was less resourced back then. I had other things I was focusing on back then. I'm a different person today. And now I can actually follow through with what it is I desire to follow through with. I don't have to let my past karma dictate what the future will look like for me. So, yeah, I have some notes here. I made those mistakes with my actions because I was not in integrity with myself, with my boundaries with myself. So maybe there's a past version of you that felt a little out of integrity with your own boundaries with yourself. And that's why perhaps those mistakes ever happened. I'm not saying there's ever any mistakes. I'm just saying sometimes we can phrase it that way in our mind. And this week, we're going to be releasing that. So let's get into the day by day. Yesterday, the moon was in Aquarius. Mercury was in a trine. Mercury moved into Scorpio yesterday. So when Mercury moves through Scorpio, it means that our consciousness, our mind, the way we think, the way we seek information is moving into a space where it's going to be really investigating things, looking for the faults, looking for the insecurities, looking for the back doors, testing all the locks and boundaries. And so we could find ourselves with Mercury and Scorpio, like kind of like detectives. We could be looking for reasons why things aren't going to work or looking for reasons why it's not safe. It's important to know this because it's not the environment that has changed. It's not the people in your life that have changed necessarily. It's not you that has changed. There's a weather pattern coming in that's going to make everyone's minds super specific, looking for the details, looking for the problems, looking for the places that need to be transformed, looking for the things that don't feel safe. So if all of a sudden you become this sort of insecure mind, just know that's Mercury trying to test all the locks and boundaries that you've put in place. Just say, thank you, Mercury. I see you. I love that you have a sharp perception. And when I need to problem solve, I will call upon you. You can use this Mercury to do the deep dive, to find those parts of yourself that need to be integrated. You can actually utilize that energy to find the hidden gemstones instead of trying to find problems or faults with other people. The words I have for Sunday are, break open to let the love sink in. So Mercury can help us right now to break things open so that we can let the love or the emotions sink in. On Monday, the moon will be in Aquarius and the sun is now moving into Scorpio, and it's trine to Saturn. This trining to Saturn is illuminating even more the vision, the faith, the thing that is in opposition to our fears. So today there's an opportunity. The words I have are to nourish tender new places with a new faith. We may find the integration opening up some tenderness. And if we align with the faith, if we adjust our perspective, if we allow ourselves to mine the previous characters that we've pushed down or suppressed, it's time to nourish them. It's time to invite them to the table. If these are teenage girls, for instance, you can do the mind experiment where you've got the round table discussion, and now there's a seat for that teenager. And she's like, hi, feeling super awkward to be here, super excited, a little hungry and thirsty. I hope that this is going to work out okay. So kind of create some space like that in our lives right now. I like to kind of create that metaphor because it kind of makes it feel a little less serious. It kind of creates more of a, right now people on social media will create these like reels where they play these different roles. They'll play like anxiety, self-doubt, or there's one I love where she actually dresses up like a tampon and she is talking about her menstrual cycle. I love those things because it brings some lightness to things that would otherwise feel really heavy and hard for us to bring energy to. And when we shift our perspective, we can actually bring more energy to the experience we're having. And so instead of I'm laying on the bed, crying, holding myself, experiencing all my childhood trauma, instead of that, we're inviting that child to the table and introducing her to Mercury, who's suddenly a super insecure detective, and the sun, who's like, yeah, we're gonna go deep sea cave diving. I hope you got your scuba gear ready. Like there's something to the storytelling that appeals to our inner child in certain ways. And if you have children in your life that struggle with getting off to school or struggle with getting, the day to day, every parent knows that bringing levity to the situation, bringing silliness can actually help the energy to move. And we are all like that. We all have those children inside of us. And if we would love to experience harmony and movement with our younger parts, that levity is what helps us to move the energy, to get that funny smile that begins the process. So I'm kind of creating some pattern interrupts to what typically could feel like a pretty hard process. And I hope that it helps. I hope that you see my silly face and hear my silly metaphors and you find it within yourself to bring that extra energy to yourself. Tuesday, the moon will move into Pisces. The sun is still in a nice trine to Saturn. The movement of our emotions on Tuesday is going to be really important. It's water, water, water. And I believe this water is creating a foundational new personal boundary. When I lean into that even more, what if our foundational new personal boundaries were that it is emotionally safe? It's emotionally safe for all of these feelings to be here. In order for me to move toward my faith, toward my vision, in order for me to face my fears and make my fears prayers, I need to create an emotionally safe container for me, for all parts of me. And then on Wednesday, the moon will cross Neptune, still in Pisces. There's a bit of a surrendering here on Wednesday. And the words I have are, allow everything to fall into its right place. there's a Radiohead song. I don't know the name of it, but maybe it's I don't know, but one of the lines in it is everything's in its right place. Just let everything fall. Let everything, like, trust the weaver of life. Trust that every single person has their own invisible virtual assistants moving them about to create the cohesive tapestry that we all exist in. This is a time to trust the weave for sure on Wednesday. And then on Thursday, the moon will move into Aries. We're preparing for the final full moon lunar eclipse that's happening on Saturday. So I believe that Thursday and Friday are going to feel like we're finding some kind of core certainty within ourselves. We're finding this strength. And the words I have for Thursday are, I formally invest in my faith. I think it's internal. I don't think anyone's making large announcements. I think it's something you're finding within yourself. I formally invest in my faith to give yourself the security and courage to finally let go of something on Saturday. But on Friday first, we still have the moon in Aries, and the moon in Aries on Friday is saying, I can hold two realities at once. We're not making the final cut yet. We have one reality on one hand, and we have one reality on the other. We can hold them both at the same time. And this is what's going to clarify what the final release is on Saturday with the full moon lunar eclipse in Taurus. Now we've had almost 2 years of eclipses in the Taurus Scorpio axis. That has been preparing us to have far more inner security so that we can release our dependencies on the outside world that would cause us to be codependent. It's a final codependency check. It is okay to be interdependent. It is okay to be open and vulnerable. It is okay to create contracts with clear boundaries. It is okay to have to lean on and trust and rely on someone else for a part of the world we're a part of. It is okay for all of that. What we have cleared in the last 2 years is feeling like somehow our self-worth is tied up in those things, that we're not worthy unless someone grants us that worth. That's an end of an era. And this eclipse on Saturday is the final cut. No longer will someone on the outside world tell me how much I'm worth. I decide, because I have inner security. I know how much I'm worth in there. And I operate from that space. People may or may not agree with me, and that's their business. I'm not doing contracts with them if they don't agree with my self-worth. like in the space of work, we hold and value the work we do in the world. In the space of relationships, we hold and value our presence in our relationships. In the space of anything else, that's the energy. And so finally, on Saturday, the final release and cutting loose the ties that prevented our liftoff. I actually saw a hot air balloon, and I saw that the air balloon was filling up with heat, was filling up, but there were still these ropes that were kind of tying it to the ground. And this is the point where there's finally enough of that heat inside so we can release the anchors and let the balloon just lift, let the levity just go. And so I hope that that's what this week feels like. I hope it feels like you're building your internal fire. You're finding that integration of yourself. You're allowing more space for yourself to be completely whole and integrated. And as you do that, the balloon is filling, and finally you just gently release the ropes and you gently lift off. It doesn't have to be super dramatic. It doesn't have to be this huge. It doesn't have to create any insecurities within our relationships. It can be so as gentle as a hot air balloon lifting off the ground. And so this is the way I saw this week going. Every week turns out exactly as I expect. I don't know how it goes for you. I'm the one writing all this stuff. Again, I'm the one writing what I think my week's going to be, how I want to be in relationship with it, how I'm trusting the weaver. I'm tasking it to each one of you to come up with your own relationship with life itself. You like every week is an invitation for you to listen to the way I'm going to do it and then make it yours. Do it how you want to do it. It doesn't even have to be like mine. You could have a freaking like jet leaving a ocean liner. That could be yours, like where you build up all this power and then I don't know, you could have it however you want it to be. Mine's a hot air balloon, yours can be whatever you want. And I hope that you take my invitation and you allow yourself to be in relationship with the co-creative nature of life with that, because yeah. We all have different recipes. All right, is there anything else I want to say before I stop the recording? My planner is selling. It's beautiful. People are receiving them. I'm so excited about it. I hope that you have your planner. I hope that you want to receive it. I know we're still a ways out. Oh, I'm going to be opening up the 2024 year ahead readings. I'm going to be doing them a little differently. You're going to have options to meet with me live at a specific time, or I will record it at that time. So you'll know when you're going to get your recording because you're going to choose the time. I have a limited amount of spaces in my life to record these. And rather than throw all these readings on myself and then stress out and try to, like, it's just not sustainable. Every single way I've recorded these in the past years, I've put so much pressure on myself and I've completely blown myself out. So this year I'm designated specific time slots for these recordings, and you can choose your time slot. You can show up live or not, and your recording will be emailed to you after that time slot. So you know exactly when you're going to receive it. So be looking for information on that in the very, very near future. And I think those are all my sacred announcements for this video. I love you all. I'm super excited to see how this season can go. And yeah, I'll see you next week.